Hello and welcome. You're watching Faultlines on NDTV. I'm Gauri Dwivedi. In this episode, we're going to decode two fault lines for you. First and foremost, the one that's running deep across Southeast Asia between Thailand and Cambodia, responsible for the clashes that are currently on between the two countries. Next, we decode the latest flashpoint in the Middle East, the one fault line that's running across Syria and causing thousands of people to lose their lives and thousands others who are now displaced.
No. No.
All right, viewers, the first story that we are decoding on the show, the deadly conflict that is taking place between Thailand and Cambodia in the dense jungles that are straddling these two countries, where ancient ruins are really the cause of concern. And there's an old border that now blazes with new fire. Families flee in panic, children crying, civilians now diving for cover as explosions echo across the countryside. A 1,000-year-old dispute has returned, and this time with deadly force. Already 16 people have lost their lives. There are landmines, there are rocket fires, there are bitter accusations, even as both sides say the other one actually started. But what really is the reason why this entire feud has started? It's rooted in sacred stones and fierce national pride. At the heart of this crisis lie two sacred temples that are at the crux of this entire conflict. Both of them are revered by both the countries, yet peacefully ruled by neither. I want to first play out these sound bites of the two sides and then we talk more on this.
ซึ่งก็จะต้องใช้เรายังยืนยันหลักการว่าต้องใช้สันติวิธีไม่ใช้ความรุนแรงแล้วก็ต้องพยายามพูดคุยกันในการแก้ไขปัญหาแต่ว่าสิ่งที่เกิดขึ้นมันเป็นลักษณะที่มีการยั่วยุจากทางกัมพูชาตลอดนะครับ
It seems the Thai jets launched airstrikes, Cambodian roads are bombed, civilians have perished and diplomats have been expelled. And ASEAN remains silent. Well, ASEAN doesn't have much of a voice here, viewers. The International Court of Justice has also ruled on this border in 1962, reaffirmed it in 2013, but in the year 2025, it has carved its own bloody inscription in history as both armies clash across the 6 volatile zones and civilians have been trapped between the gunfire and uncertainty that's caught in the battle when neither side is now willing to relent. And in the shadow of these sacred temples, peace feels like a very distant, fading prayer. This is the Thailand-Cambodia border crisis. All right, viewers, let's now talk about what is the timeline as far as this entire crisis is concerned. I told you this isn't new. This has been going on for over a century. Let me put that for you in terms of understanding why this is something that leads to such strong emotions on both sides. 1907 is when the first colonial map was actually drawn. Till about 1953, French had occupied Cambodia. This is the first time they drew the map, and that is when they left several of this actually demarcated. Next, the French map had actually placed these temples on the Cambodian side. In 1962, the ICJ had sided with Cambodia on this. This was just 9 years after French had vacated, and there was still a sense that a lot of this map had undemarcated territory very clearly. The reason why this feud is so intense on both sides. Next, 2008, 2011 is when the next set of very deadly set of clashes actually took place. But still not as intense as what we are seeing right now. 2008, 2011, about 14 years back is when dozens had been killed in the temple zone premises and the areas, but those were smaller skirmishes. You did not have the kind of ammunition and weaponry that's being used this time around. So these clashes were not as intense as what it is right now. 2013, yet again the claim came up in ICJ and it had once again reaffirmed on the Cambodian side that these temples, which are at the heart of this entire dispute, were on the Cambodian side. 2025, the border burns again, where you have this entire issue being used once again. It ignited in May but it has now led to a possibility of a war. That is being said on the Thailand side, that there is a possibility that it could actually escalate into a full-blown conflict between the two sides. All right, viewers, I'm going to now shift focus and talk about the other important story that we are tracking on the show on Faultlines this week. Well, viewers, in Gaza, one can say that war is chaos. It destroys lives. It shatters hope. But not every tragedy is a genocide, or at least that's what one of the foremost experts on war tells us. He says that in Gaza, some claim that Israel is committing genocide. But what does the law actually say on this? On Faultlines, we're going to hear from one of the foremost war experts joining us on the broadcast, John Spencer, who's been on the front lines with the Israeli military himself, who breaks down the orders and the reality on the ground. Mr. Spencer, thank you so much for speaking to us on Faultlines. Let me first start by asking you that you've made two very significant arguments and actually saying something that nobody in the world is saying, which is that there is no genocide happening in Gaza. What's the premise of the argument that you've made, and why is it that you feel that the world has got it completely wrong?
Sure. There's only two main points of the arguments, which are the two kind of attacking the counter argument that in order to have genocide, which is the highest of three, war crimes, crimes against humanity, and then genocide is the highest bar of human evilness, right? So the intent and actions to eliminate an entire group, race, religion, ethnicity. I argue that the statements that have been cited by Israel political leaders, so the prime minister, the minister of defense, and the chief of staff, about how they are going to destroy Hamas, or that Hamas is human animals. These in no way infer genocidal intent, which is the first bar you have to get over. Then you can get to actions. But genocidal intent usually requires, orders, direct statements, and each one of the comments that have been cited are just taken out of context. Of course, you want to destroy your enemy. I mean, they even use Prime Minister Netanyahu's comments about remember Amalek, which is a biblical verse that is posted not only on Israel's Holocaust Memorial national site, it's posted on the Holocaust Memorial in The Hague. Those few words, which means remember the threats that are going to try to attack you. It isn't a call for genocide against a group. The only other argument one is that all these five political statements are not clear evidence of genocidal intent. And as a matter of fact, there are way more comments directly addressing the fact that all of these same individuals, the prime minister, the minister of defense, the chief of staff of Israel's army, have said, our fight is not with the people of Gaza. Just many statements. Of course, that is not factored into these people's arguments who say that there is genocidal intent. They don't factor in all of these direct statements.
Okay. Mr. Spencer, what about the fact that there's been a massive amount of death toll in Gaza since October 2023? A lot of civilians have lost their lives, and the world over is being said that this exactly is genocide. How would you respond to that death toll, which is running and in fact has crossed 50,000 already?
That's right. So, I mean, people can read the Genocide Convention themselves. It's only a few pages. And nowhere in it does it say, well, once you've hit this number of buildings destroyed, this many civilians unfortunately killed, then it's a genocide. That's not the way war works. It's definitely not the way the Genocide Convention works. And the numbers that are cited are very problematic, especially in this war where Hamas does not wear uniforms, does want civilians killed. Even if I'm having this argument, people will say, well, 17,000 children killed. Even that, although unfortunate, any child that gets killed, 17,000 children, that statistic is from Hamas. It includes everybody 18 and below, and Hamas regularly deploys child soldiers. And, there's problems with this list, natural deaths, all of this. The strong argument, you're right. If this was the way that genocidal intent was determined, the number of people killed in a war, almost every war could be classified as a genocide. And none of these things is that the way this works. Genocidal intent is determined by the words and the actions like of the commanders. And this is, again, resting on my primary research, going into Gaza with the IDF and observing their actions. There is no genocidal intent. And there's actually mountains of evidence opposite of trying to eliminate civilians. Mountains of evidence on what the IDF does to separate Hamas from the civilians, on warnings that they give.
Okay. Mr. Spencer, then is everything happening only because of Hamas right now in Gaza? And are you giving a clean chit to Israel and Netanyahu completely in terms of whatever is happening, the death, destruction, devastation in Gaza, all in all is because of Hamas?
No, so there's definitely the main. Of course, there's death and destruction in war, right? I try to give people the context of the war, what Hamas built in Gaza, what the strategies that Hamas uses, the fact that all of the killing would stop if Hamas would give the hostages back and surrender, or the fact that all of the human suffering would have been alleviated had Egypt, to this day still could, open up their gate and allow for a very relatively in numbers small humanitarian area just on the other side of the gate, outside of the grasp of Hamas, who wants all of this conversation to be happening, wants the numbers to be as high as they can be. Every individual action has to be assessed like the law of war requires. So yes, if there's a bombing and civilians are excessive to the goal, then that has to be questioned. But to aggregate it all and say, this is all Israel's fault, which is the narrative here, is that there's a sneaky Israeli objective here, that of course they can't do genocide in the open, so they're doing it very sneakily. That's just again an assault on my critical thinking skills and to those who have actually been there and seeing the efforts the IDF are taking. Of course, there's lots of death, there's lots of destruction. Does that mean that Israel is intentionally doing that? Absolutely not.
All right, I'm going to leave it there. Mr. John Spencer, thanks much for speaking to us on NDTV. Well, viewers, that you heard one of the foremost voices in military history, military experts saying there's actually no genocide that's taken place in Gaza. A huge voice and a huge contra opinion that you're getting right here first on Faultlines on NDTV. It's time to take a quick break. We return on the other side to talk about the other fault line, which is the one that runs across Syria. Stay tuned for that. Viewers, it started with tribal gunmen and a checkpoint clash. Now it's increased to airstrikes, mass graves and major powers circling in that area. We're talking about Sueda, a minor sectarian feud that has exploded into a battlefield. You can see that. Those are mass graves that are there. What happened here? It was a local blood fuels global agenda. That's essentially what happened. Israel said that it's actually protecting the Druze community. It calls them their brothers. Then came Turkey, which is threatening the autonomy seekers. Then Iran and Russia are playing shadow games, even as thousands of civilians are caught in that crossfire. I'm going to put that map for you, viewers, to understand where exactly is Sueda and where is it that multiple number of entities and stakeholders are coming to light. In very close to Damascus, where a tenuous truce is holding out for yet another day. Syria seems to be losing control and the world quietly looking at how to take this forward. We break down the war within the war and a dangerous new red line that nobody is talking about. I'm going to put that timeline for you, and why is this now something that's said to be the new flashpoint in Middle East. Let's put that out, viewers. First and foremost, Syria's government is fighting for control, for legitimacy. Al-Shara government has been there for less than a year, and right now these clashes threaten its existence, its legitimacy. Next up, the Druze versus Bedouin issue is not new. As I said, one single issue, and it just became such an major flashpoint, a big trigger in the entire region. How this is going to pan out remains to be seen, because it is an old feud that keeps recurring again and again. 1,400 people have already died in this fierce urban warfare that has yet again surfaced in Syria. Then the bodies are piling up. Aid has also been blocked, but that entire region is where aid has actually been blocked. And Israel's role, as I said, it's actually said that it's defending the Druze community. It says they are their brothers, and which is why the Israeli bombing in that area further worsened the conflict and increased the tensions. As we tell you that there's a role that Turkey plays, let's move ahead and also tell you that civilians have actually feared permanent displacement in Dara shelters, even as sectarian rhetoric is actually rising in Syria. Now, why does all of this matter? It matters because it impacts the stability and even the existence of the Syrian government going forward, and what it means is possibility of a lot of people looking to actually move to some of the other border areas. And as the final thing is that the Human Rights Watch is that all sides have been accused of war crimes in this entire crisis. Well, viewers, as we decode this, let me also now tell you that there are bodies in hospital corridors, sniper fire on aid workers, and now a city that's holding its breath under a ceasefire that's holding as we speak, but no one knows for how long. The violence in Sueda is the latest flare-up in a centuries-old rivalry, reignited by power vacuums, sectarian fears, regional power plays. And this report is how we take you into the heart of a city that's battered by war, into a conflict that's shaped by history, identity, and of course, geopolitics. Take a look.
In the shadow of the southern mountains, the city of Sueda bleeds. The Syrian Arab Red Crescent says 300 bodies were counted in the city's main hospital. A facility cut off from electricity, water, and medical supplies for nearly 2 weeks. Aid convoys face sniper fire. The wounded are often left behind. Sueda, home to Syria's Druze minority, became the center of deadly clashes this month after a local dispute escalated into full-scale violence between Druze militias and Sunni Bedouin tribes. Government troops soon intervened, claiming to restore order, but civilians say they brought devastation instead.
زرنا المشفى الوطني بالمدينة السويداء. الوضع سيء، نقص كبير بالمواد ونقص بالكوادر البشرية. البنية التحتية شوي يعني بدها دعم كتير كبير بالمشفى الوطني.
The conflict spiraled far beyond Sueda. Israel launched bombing raids on Syrian military positions, including the Ministry of Defense in Damascus, claiming to protect the Druze. Turkey, meanwhile, issued stark warnings to Kurdish and Druze groups, rejecting any push for autonomy.
אנחנו קבענו מדיניות ברורה, פירוז המרחב דרומית לדמשק מהגולן ועד אזור הר הדרוזים. זה קו אחד. הקו השני, שמירה על האחים של האחים שלנו, הדרוזים בהר הדרוזים.
إن الأحداث الأخيرة التي شهدتها محافظة السويداء قد şekkelet انعطافة خطيرة في الوضع الأمني والسياسي في سوريا.
Başkasının yardımıyla oluşturulmuş, kan üzerine kurulmuş kaostan otonomi çıkarmaya çalışan, bağımsızlık çıkarmaya çalışan.
Israel, Turkey, and the US all have interests here. Israel favors a federated Syria aligning with minority groups like Druze and Kurds. Turkey demands national unity, threatening to intervene if minorities seek autonomy. The US is walking a diplomatic tightrope, urging calm while quietly backing the Shara-led interim government in Damascus. This is the latest flashpoint in a fragile post-Assad Syria, where ancient mistrust meets modern geopolitics.
Let's get you a voice from Damascus. Robin Yassin Kassab, who's the co-author of Burning Country, Syrians in Revolution, joins me on the broadcast to tell about whether or not the threat on the Druze community, the reason why this escalation has actually happened, is going to be a major issue going forward as well. How do you see that, Robin? And explain to us just how intense is the threat that this community feels, because that will explain whether or not this entire conflict is going to escalate from here on.
What every community here needs to feel safe and secure and at peace is accountability. We need accountability we need every criminal, whatever their sectarian or political or ethnic background, who commits a crime to be punished, and whoever their victims are. So I think that's what people need from the new government. We need to know that those who commit crimes will be punished, and that accountability will deter people from committing crimes against others. And we also need the militias. There's so many militias: Druze militias, Bedouin militias, Kurdish militias, Islamist militias, so many militias in this country. We need them to be disarmed, and that's a slow and gradual and difficult process. And we hope that we can manage to disarm these people and prove that accountability will exist and calm things down before these conflicts escalate further.
That was a voice from Damascus to tell you the number of stakeholders that are actually there and the reason why Syria remains on the edge. Well, after 6 decades of roaring through India's skies, the MiG-21 will soon take its final flight. Not in defeat, viewers, of course, but in huge glory. Born in the Cold War, baptized in every major conflict India has fought since 1965, the MiG-21 wasn't just a fighter jet, it was a sentinel of the nation's skies, a symbol of grit and a metallic memoir of courage. From downing enemy jets in the 1971 war to scripting aerial history with Wing Commander Abhinandan's bold sortie in 2019, MiG-29 finally bows out. They're leaving behind an iconic legacy that's etched in thunder and triumph. Here's a special report for you viewers.
A machine that roared through the skies for over 6 decades. A symbol of India's aerial might. The MiG-21, the very soul of Indian air power, is finally being phased out. After 60 years of fearless service, the Indian Air Force has sounded the final bugle for the MiG-21, a Cold War-era marvel, a Soviet-born beast, and India's longest-serving fighter jet. Introduced in 1963, the MiG-21 wasn't just a fighter jet. It was India's sharpest sword in the sky during some of its fiercest battles. Let's rewind the clock. MiG-21 proved its mettle in several wars fought by India. During the Bangladesh Liberation War of 1971, it gave India the decisive edge, dominating many dogfights. It wasn't just fighting a war, it was shaping the map of South Asia. The fighter jet also played a key role for the Indian Air Force in the 1965 war and the 1999 Kargil conflict with Pakistan. In 2019, Group Captain Abhinandan Vartaman, then a wing commander of the erstwhile Srinagar-based No. 51 Squadron, was flying a MiG-21 Bison when he downed an F-16 aircraft of the Pakistani Air Force. Today, we salute not just a machine, but an era. A time when courage flew at Mach 2, when the thundering roar of a MiG-21 was the sound of India's might in the sky. To the warriors who flew it, to the engineers who nursed it, and to the history it wrote in contrails across the Indian skies. Bureau Report, NDTV World.
All right, viewers, that brings us to an end of this edition of Faultlines. We come back next week with another set of fault lines, another set of clashes and conflicts that we will decode here right for you. With that, thanks so much for watching this episode.